Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Darker Shadow, the internet personality of the best hair, and welcome back to the never-ending...
The Summer of Arnold Schwarzenegger!
And welcome to the beginning of the end of his film career, Last Action Hero. Regarded as the start of his slump, Last Action Hero got your general AAA game treatment. Hyped up to all hell, pushed out the gate before they even gave the test audiences enough time with the movie, and received underwhelming reviews. It didn't help that the studio felt delaying it would waste precious weeks of summer and decided to release the damn thing against motherfucking Jurassic Park, but no one ever accused studio meddling of being a positive influence. This also happens to be the first movie where the man is listed as executive producer, though I'm not entirely sure where this is ranked on Arnold's list of regrets. Somewhere in between Batman and Robin and Hercules in New York. No matter the case, Last Action Hero is the story of a kid who watches movies the way most sane people would do drugs, cutting school and lying to his mother just to get his next fix of the silver screen. And it's through his illicit cinematic pursuits he obtains a magic movie ticket, able to transport him into the world of movies itself. So of course he uses it on the latest balls-to-the-wall action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, because really, was there ever any other option? And in any case, it was at least a better choice than Playmate of the Apes. So anyway, let's take a look at Last Action Hero and see if it really is as big of a pile of horseshit as its reputation says. Our movie opens up at the end of the movie. Or the end of a movie, I should say. Jack Slater 3, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Jack Slater. The police chief, the charismatic and sexy Lieutenant Decker, played by Frank McRae, insists he not go into the climax and wait for the professionals, which Jack of course ignores completely, even brushing off Tina Turner and punching the lieutenant governor before kicking the SWAT guy square in the balls.
Decker, the next one are good.
Desert Eagle 50 Action Express. Fine choice of carry weapon if you're just not sure if at any time during the day you might have to shoot out an engine block. Heading up to the roof, we see that Jack's very own son is being held hostage by the psycho bad guy, the Ripper, played by Tim Noonan. First part of hostage negotiations, he requests Jack disarm himself.
Is that all, sport?
Well, lethal weapons or not, you can't really expect the man to cut off his hands for you. Jack says it's all he's got. Unless, of course, the Ripper meant live grenades as well! Thing is, Rip here calls his bluff because he knows there's no way Jack Slater would throw a live grenade at his own son, and he's right. It was actually a secret knife, thus with one quick dive. The movie loses its focus. Which is kind of a theme in this one, but usually not quite so literal. This introduces the real star of the movie, in the real world, Danny Madigan, played by Austin O'Brien. He comes to the theater often enough he's actually close friends with the man in the projection booth, Nick, played by Robert Prosky. No idea how this movie went out of focus all on its own, considering lenses have a tendency to not move when no one's moving them, but he's too late to fix it. Oh well, doesn't matter. Danny's seen Jack Slater 3 hundreds of times anyway. The real surprise is that Nick is willing to let him come by later for an early viewing of Jack Slater 4, before the movie is officially released.
Who do I have to kill?
Nobody. All you have to do is to get to school. You know, if you hurry, you're only going to be 4 hours late.
The fuck did he do? Watch 2 or 3 movies during school hours? And now you're gonna tell him to go to school pretending like you actually give a shit? But to be fair, it's not like school raises too much of a stink over his extreme tardiness. Not sure why he skipped school anyway, considering his class assignment today is to watch a movie. An old film adaptation of Hamlet, so not exactly his preferred genre, but that's nothing a 12-year-old's imagination can't take care of.
Stay thy hand, fair prince.
Who said I'm fair?
This has fuck all to do with anything, but I'll be damned if it's not one of the best scenes in the whole frickin' movie. Let's pretend it and Danny returning to class with no ill consequences never happened, because it turns out the school is in fact highly upset with him constantly cutting class. His mother knows it's because he spends all his time watching movies. However, that's just one more thing to go with her already very stressful life.
I didn't say, hey, what the hell? Let me see what it'd be like to be a widow before I'm 40. Give that a try.
Don't let.
Not only is this a very awkward way for the film to establish that his father is dead, but I'll be damned if that's not some cruel-ass shit to bring up in the middle of a conversation about your son's schoolwork. No wonder he doesn't spend that much time at home if every time he's trying to eat, his mother's constantly reminding him, hey, remember that time your dog ran away? Actually, she doesn't spend all that much time with him either, considering she has a job, and evidently it starts around 4 p.m., so off she goes to work, instructing him to not open the door for anything. Considering he has that movie to go to tonight, it doesn't take long for us to learn why. Burglars in this town don't give a fuck if you're home or not. They have crimes to commit, damn it. And come to think of it, he might care somewhat. He seems to enjoy teasing the kid, because every robbery is really an opportunity to learn a moral lesson now, isn't it? Oh well, after being thoroughly underwhelmed that the house he robbed in the poor part of town happened to be poor as shit, he gives Danny the key to the handcuffs so we can forget that traumatizing experience immediately and have a completely different traumatizing experience. You know Danny's friend Nick, who's going to help him see Jack Slater 4 before it's released? Yeah, well, he's completely batshit insane and starts droning on about this magic movie ticket he got from Harry Houdini, ignoring that Houdini put about as much stock into the supernatural as James Randi, and it will give him magical powers over movies themselves.
What's it do, Nick?
I never had the courage to find out.
In 60 plus years of having this movie ticket, you never at any point thought to maybe try the magic for yourself, but still firmly believing the magic to be true, you decide to hand it to a kid so that he can use it to watch the latest pyrotechnic porn. As when Danny gets the idea of using the magic right now. Oh. Well, I guess that solves that issue. Oh, wait, no, that's just Nick giving Danny his ticket stub and doesn't affect the magic whatsoever. Who cares about details like that anyway when the real movie is about to begin? As in the third movie within a movie, Jack Slater 4. Seems all his close family was already kidnapped and killed in one way or another in the previous films, so now we open the crime lord, Tony Vivaldi, played by Anthony Quinn, torturing Jack Slater's favorite second cousin, Frank, played by Art Carney in his last movie role. However, neither of them are really who we should care about in this scene. The big bad guy, Benedict, played by Charles Dance. Though it's said that his role was actually written for Alan Rickman, but for one reason or another they just couldn't get him. This theory is supported by the fact that most of Benedict's lines and directions seem to be very much intended for Rickman, but as he's not available, Dance does the best with what he's given, which isn't much right now. Vivaldi has this villain rant before the movie is interrupted for the shocking news that the bad guy will likely not win, before we see why, as Jack Slater casually rides up to a drug bust.
This don't look like no crack house to me.
What do you want? 60 guys dancing on the lawn, throwing cocaine at each other?
Yeah! I mean, that would be helpful to the investigation. This drug bust confuses Jack, considering this is the home of his favorite second cousin, Frank. However, when the man doesn't answer, Jack moves in to investigate, finding him dying, and relaying the message that the big bad wanted him to hear shortly before.
I'm out of here. Frank! Frank!
I'll look on the bright side, Jack. Free pencil holder. Except this one comes with countdown flashcards, which of course means there's a bomb!
He's okay. Minor wound. Both cops dead.
You mind, kid? I got a job to do here. As he said, Jack's fine, but the cops are dead as shit.
2 days to determine.
And here's a lovely sampling of music from Lethal Weapon, just in case you missed that reference to Lethal Weapon. The bad guys must have figured Jack wouldn't be caught in the blast, though, as this leads to a car chase. Not necessarily a tense or even particularly exciting one, mind you. It's considerably more jovial in tone, what with the Acme brand dynamite on hand, that can easily be deflected by Jack Slater. You know what? If that's how this movie went about bombing at the box office, I'm pretty sure a lot more people would have been talking about it. Unfortunately for us, Danny does what he learned in all those action movies and runs away from the huge explosion towards the screen like an idiot, but this does land him safely in the middle of the high-speed chase. Much to the surprise of Jack, but he's not one for questioning things too much when he's got people to kill.
Wait a minute. The bad puns, the voice, the hard rock. This is happening. This is really happening.
The summer of Arnold Schwarzenegger has finally made me crack. Eventually, all the driving, wisecracking, and inexplicable explosion leads to a good old-fashioned game of chicken. Danny's not worried. This is a movie, and he knows no matter what, Jack Slater always wins at chicken. Well, I guess that is one way to establish this isn't a kids' movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I like what I see, but before seeing this, the movie was coming off like it was intended for a much younger audience. Oh well, the TNA just keeps coming as, after the chase, we move on to the fabulous offices of the LAPD, home of the fucking T-1000, as well as Pleather Pleasure Patrol officers and the Tin Tatas. The other important characters, though, that would be John Practice, played by F. Murray Abraham. He's an old friend of Jack, but Danny's smart enough to know that Abraham tends to be typecast as secret villains.
Watch it, Jack. He killed Mozart.
In a movie?
Amadeus, it won 8 Oscars.
But as much as the kid who fell from the sky keeps screaming about how everything around him is from movies, Jack isn't buying it. But to be fair, imagine going into a horror movie and trying to convince all the teenagers that if they go to the party, they're probably going to end the night missing more than a few vital organs. Danny, of course, won't stop trying to convince Jack that he is in fact in a movie, and tries to point out anything that can prove it.
An animated cat just walked into the squad room. Hello?
He'll do it again tomorrow, so what's your point?
That cat is one of the best men I got.
I just realized the Justice League movie would have been way better if instead of Batfleck, we got the animated series Batman in there. So convincing them they're all in a movie is a fool's errand, but when Danny starts going off about how their lead isn't exactly true because of information he gathered from the opening scene, Decker takes the next logical step.
Meet your new partner.
Oh no. Better to die.
Now, to be honest, Jack, I'm surprised he hasn't killed you yet. Proving just how great of an asset he is, Danny immediately derails the investigation to pursue more proof that they are in fact in a movie. To do this, they head over to the Acme Video, aka Blockbuster Video with a different sign on the outside.
No, it isn't possible.
Yeah, the Terminator is referenced in plenty of movies, and the fact that it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger is brought up more than a few times. Because this is movie land, though, Schwarzenegger's characters are real, but his movies are not. Which would mean there's plenty of people who look like Arnold running around, as well as Stallone, and changing the Terminator into Stallone doesn't do much except make for an awkward summer crossover fanfic, but I digress. He finally does get around to helping the investigation, pointing out which house he saw in the opening. Not that this method of detective work impresses Jack all that much.
All the courses that I've taken in surveillance, hostage negotiation, in criminal psychology, when all I had to do is just drive around the neighborhood and point my finger at the house and say, the bad guys ain't there.
Works for the Wall Street Journal. Still annoyed at having to listen to the kid, Jack does knock on the door, which is answered by Sub-Zero himself, Professor Toru Tanaka.
It's a beautiful day, and we're out killing drug dealers. Are there any in the house?
So no market for door-to-door hitmen. Well, there goes that idea for another revenue stream. However, Benedict does answer the door, and his behavior starts to make Jack think that the kid is onto something. Especially when the man summons forth his guard dogs, who are oh so cute and fuzzy.
Make no mistake, they are exceptionally well trained.
Okay, whatever his evil plans are, just let him do it, as long as he does it with the cutest little fuzzballs I've ever seen. Problem is, Jack is actually a decent cop, and it turns out that Benedict being a douchebag is not illegal. At least not in 1993. Thus he takes Danny home with him, where the kid gets a very warm welcome from Jack's daughter, Whitney Slater, played by Meredith Caprice, played by Bridget Wilson Sampras. As long as we're introducing family, why not pull out a picture of Jack's son from the third movie? That gives him the chance to get all sad and shit, leaving the house to have a flashback as to why exactly the picture upsets him so much. Yeah, there's a reason the bad guys had to kidnap his favorite second cousin, Frank. He's kinda running out of family members to care about. Unless you count his daughter, but the movie isn't known for having rock-solid consistency. The problem is, while Jack was away, Benedict figured maybe he should take the fight to the kid who knows way more than he should, and bring some goons to boot. This allows him to extract information out of the lad with a good old-fashioned shakedown.
How do you know what I said on Vivaldi's Terrace?
I heard a recording.
Microphones in the statues, are there?
No, the boom mic operator just out of frame. At least most of the time. There's also this thing about him trying to bribe them to leave with counterfeit money that lets off weird colored smoke when you burn it, but this story is wonky enough as it is. Before Jack even gets back, Meredith defeats one goon with the power of screaming and ass-kickery. Okay. Maybe next time just kick me in the balls, break my neck, and call it a day. Being a quadriplegic eunuch is hard enough without having to rely on closed captioning for the rest of my life. The hero's ability to easily fight off several armed goons means they have enough time for Jack to come back home and kill the fuck out of everyone inside. Except for his daughter and Danny, of course. But not all hope is lost. Benedict has managed to escape, and Danny, on his girly little bike, realizes he's a good guy and can still beat him in a game of chicken. Except for one little detail that slipped his mind for a bit.
I'm a comedy sidekick! Oh shit! I'm a comedy sidekick! It's not gonna work!
Well, it's not any more jarring than crashing through the lingerie party. That was an edit by me, though. He actually turns away at the last second to play out the Emblem Entertainment logo before surviving just fine. Except for the fact that Benedict got away, and lo and behold, in the confusion, he escaped with Danny's wallet. Trying to find out whatever you can about the kid, he spills the contents out, discovering the strange little trinket held within.
NASCAR 73, this is a Landau, top power steering, power brakes, air conditioning, $9.99. You know, if you're looking for trucks, we got trucks. We got
Reviewing to the baddest bad guy in town, the awesome powers of Exit Stage Left. So the true evil plans of his will finally get this movie's plot rolling. Later, first we have to go back to Danny still trying to convince Jack that he's in a movie by getting him to say something.
I don't want to say it.
Say what? You can't. You can't possibly say it. Because this movie is PG-13.
We can still say it once, you little fuck. Before that can happen, he needs to have a good reason, though, such as Benedict leaving a booby-trapped glass eye resulting in a massive explosion which doesn't kill Jack or Danny, but does piss Decker off to the point that he strips the man of his badge, and now he's got a bunk in a shitty apartment with the kid, while said kid keeps going on and on about how all the pain and loss he's experienced all his life is simply because some popcorn-munching motherfuckers want something to gawk at for 90 minutes. This also leads to the whole secret sabotage plot of Jack Slater 4, but it's really not relevant to the main story anyway. To summarize, though, Danny knows from the intro that the bad guys were planning on sabotaging LaFart's funeral, and knowing that this is a movie with tons of explosions, the kid rules out dynamite as being done to death. This reminds Jack that some nerve gas just so happened to be stolen a while back, but that makes no change to the plans anyway, as they head to the funeral to prevent the death of a bunch of mobsters. It was to prevent the big bad mobster from gaining total control, so it makes sense on some level, at least. After dumping the corpse into a tar pit, they make their way back to Benedict's home to get some good old-fashioned revenge.
This is for my daughter's black eye!
Usually when I do that, it leaves a hole.
And usually when the summer ends, so does a summer special, but shit doesn't always work out that way, Jackie boy. Facing the terrifying realization that his snot-nosed sidekick is actually sane, they leap through the movie screen to chase after Benedict. This results in quite a culture shock for Jack, as now cars don't explode instantly from handgun fire, and Danny insists that he can't play chicken now because in reality people die when they try shit like that. So Danny gets out of the car and lets the man play chicken anyway.
What did I do?
You just made the body count rise. By one, as Toru Tanaka is toast, but Slater is all smiles and sunshine. Benedict, however, is something that starts with a B that means he escaped. Back in a movie land in all likelihood, and they can't follow without the ticket, so they do the next best thing. Head over to the theater so Nick can gawk at Jack like he's some kind of circus attraction.
I just found out I was imaginary. I mean, how would you feel if you found out that somebody made you up?
Oh, you mean like D&D players or devil worshippers, video gamers or psychopathic violent murderers, every single current year? After trying to cheer him up by telling him there's far worse things to be than fictional, like being a politician, which is more than a little ironic, Danny then decides to do something he hasn't done in at least 12 hours. Return home to his panicked mother's desperate pleas for him to stop being so self-destructive with his movie consumption. But perhaps this will calm her down.
Hello, Mrs. Madigan. Arnold Braunschweiger.
Oh great, he's been hanging out with Hollywood celebrities and getting shit-faced. Danny's idea of a cover story that Jack is actually Arnold to come up with a good excuse for him is completely ruined anyway by Jack telling Irene that he's actually Jack, an LAPD officer, and she believes him completely, no questions asked. This changes nothing as Danny and Jack start searching around New York City for Benedict just the same. Unable to find him, they muse he might be going into other movies with the magic ticket. Because he is, but they're not supposed to know that until they find the paper he had with all those movies he intends to go into for Minions. All this just in time for the official world premiere of Jack Slater 4 with Arnold Schwarzenegger present. Guess who Benedict's target is? Kill Schwarzenegger and no more Jack Slater. However, his choice of assassin leaves a bit to be desired.
I thought I might kill someone.
Maybe you should start with your designer.
The Ripper, he circled guys like Dracula and fucking Jason. And the Argonauts, but the point is, the Ripper is going to be a terrifying foe to Jack Slater and fucking nobody else. Which also seems like a pretty poor plan when you consider Slater has already beat the guy once, and with Arnold Schwarzenegger around, you know there's already more than a little security. This means the assassination attempt, like this movie, is a spectacular failure in the theater. However, it doesn't mean that Jack is off the hook just yet, as the Ripper tosses Danny off the roof to his death! Guess that narrows down what to do from here on out. Gotta love how electricity is selective about which soaking wet surface it feels like conducting through at the time. I thought we were supposed to be in the real world now. So the Ripper is fried, and it turns out the movie's the one that faked Danny's death this time, and it turns out the kid is still hanging on for dear life. A quick rescue later, and it's on to the final confrontation between Jack Slater and Benedict. Yeah, the Ripper was the only motherfucker he brought out of movie land, despite the huge selection of great villains, but don't worry, he's not the only one who royally sucks at tactics. Okay, just how many times do they intend on killing the good guys during the climax? It's not like there's too much to care about left in the movie anyway, so at the last second, Jack, who's still alive, shoots Benedict's eye out, blowing him the fuck up, but also causing the ticket to be lost in the wind. Now out in the wild, the ticket does just whatever the fuck it wants, such as letting Death himself, played by Ian McKellen, come out of the silver screen to walk the streets of New York, killing people because, fuck it. Just because random movies are coming to life, though, that doesn't mean Danny can just drag Jack back through the screen to where his wounds no longer matter, and death comes. Or, fuck doing his job, he just had an advanced copy of the flick and tells him to look for the other half of the ticket, idiots! Thus, Danny does, finds it, and saves the day. Therefore, happy ending! Jack is back feeling great and spending his last moments of screen time telling Decker off.
You know why you're shouting? Because it's in the script. You're the comic relief. Yes. And you know what else? I am the hero. So shut up!
Alright. Well, that was Last Action Hero, and to be honest, it's entertaining, but all over the goddamn place. At its heart, it is a fun enough flick. The humor mostly works, and the acting isn't terrible. Also, it's one of the few movies that didn't have to decide between New York and LA. It did both, and it did it in a way that actually worked. However, quite a bit of this movie is weird. Not weird as in surreal or grotesque, but there's a crap ton of plot lines all fighting with each other over which one is supposed to be important at any given time. The movie runs for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I opted to summarize a 20-minute chunk into a paragraph because, in all honesty, by the time it came up, it was pointless fluff in between Benedict discovering the ticket and actually using it. It's quite a challenge trying to describe the movie as being any singular thing, because it suffers from an identity crisis from beginning to end. Some of that surely by design, what with hopping between the real world and the movie world and the implications therein, but you've got things like Danny hopping into Jack Slater 4, at which point the ticket mysteriously stops working, and he spends most of his time trying to convince his star that he's in a movie, rather than trying to get the thing to function. Once the bad guys have it, it works again for no apparent reason. Once again, I find it hard to get invested in trying to figure out a movie when it feels like the movie doesn't care enough to even establish rules in the first place. Thing is, like I said, despite all these glaring problems, there is a lot of entertainment to be found here. The movie does rely heavily on being an unaware, self-aware action flick as the joke to carry it over its 2-hour-plus running time, but it pulls it off far better than its reputation might have you believe, coming in at 3 random scantily clad ladies fleeing in terror out of 5. Certainly disappointing for how much it was hyped up, but it's not Red Sonja or Sabotage. Thank you all for watching. I've been Decker Shadow. And remember, all you have to do is point at a house and go, "The bad guys are in there!"
He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. The internet personality with the best hair. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. He's like a shadow. The internet personality with the best hair.
That cat is one of the best men I got.